All right, folks, we are halfway through the RNC convention, and I don't think the GOP has been this united, this in sync, this cohesive in a long time. Usually it's the Democrats who circle the wagons in lockstep loyalty, but not this time and not this year. Make no mistake, the forces that be behind the scenes, the Nancys, the Schiffs, the Schumers, and even the Obamas, are far from gung-ho for Joe Biden. But you know who is? Kamala Harris. Do I think Kamala is defending Joe out of the goodness of her heart because she's just that loyal to Joe? No. She all but called the man a flat-out, straight-up racist on the debate stage back in 2019, don't forget. Now, she's loyal to Joe for the same reason Joe is loyal to her. They need each other, but not for the obvious reason of just standing by your running mate. No. They need each other like a shark needs those little fish that suction to their bodies. You know the kind. So let's start with Kamala, that little fish, the remora fish, as they're technically referred to in nature. Believe me, I did a lot of research on this. The remora fish attach themselves to the shark to float without burning much energy. They even eat the little scraps of food left behind by the shark. So Kamala, the remora fish, needs to suction onto Joe because that's Kamala's only shot at becoming president in her lifetime. Her, at the top of the ticket, is a losing bet. We all know it. She can't win outright on her own. Her best and only bet is for Joe to be reelected somehow and then resign by choice or by force sometime in term 2. So she needs to be all in on Joe right now. She doesn't want him to step down. Not at all. Not now. But Joe also needs Kamala. Joe needs Kamala because Kamala is so bad, and her running at the top of that ticket would be so disastrous for Democrats, and they know it, that they might just be willing to leave Joe as the nominee because Kamala is Joe's insurance policy. I'm glad you've enjoyed this little edition of Democrats in the Wild. Let me bring in our friend, 2024 New Jersey Trump delegate and host of Crispi Unafraid. Mike Crispi, I want to get his little take on my oceanic analogy. We have a lot to talk about on the GOP, on the RNC side, but I just want to start off with this because I think Joe and Kamala are both getting a giant break this week from talking about Joe's decline, from talking about how bad Kamala is, because we're rightfully so very focused on the RNC. But I still have to ask you just right off the top, do you think Joe is going to be the nominee?
Well, Tommy, I got to say, if you weren't a talk show host, you'd make a great marine biologist. No, I don't think that Joe Biden at this point is going to be the nominee. I think right now that they're worried that as the election gets closer, that the man could quite literally pass away. I mean, and I'm not saying that wishing ill on him, but his health decline over the last couple of months has been apparent. It's on full display for the world. And I think obviously the Democrats are between a rock and a hard place. If they replace Joe Biden with anybody who's not named Kamala Harris, well, then they got to start their fundraising operation over from scratch. That money won't carry over. But if they put Kamala at the top of the ticket, I think you're 100% right. She has no chance to win. She literally got 0 delegates and pulled at 0 when she tried to run for president. So I think they're going to swap her out, Tommy. I think there's going to be a surprise. I think it's going to be either Newsom or Michelle Obama, I contend. And if it's not Newsom or Michelle Obama, well, then they're all out of cards then, because then we're going to have a landslide victory because these Democrats right now, as you said at the top of your segment, are so disorganized and fractured, and there's so much infighting going on. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. So I think we're headed towards a landslide right now, no matter who the nominee is.
So I want to be optimistic about that, but something in me is just telling me that we can't get too cocky. We've gotten cocky like this before. I feel like we were a little cocky ahead of 2020, certainly cocky ahead of 2022, and I think that didn't serve the movement well for us to be too excited. And when I look at the Democrats, it looks like disarray and disorganization, but I don't want to fall for it because I don't think Democrats are actually as disorganized and as disjointed as it may appear, I feel like we're being hustled. And so that's why I keep cautioning folks, because I do think, to your point, I do think it's going to be Gavin Newsom. I don't think Michelle Obama wants it. Why would she? She's effectively, her and Barack are still running the Democrat Party, but they're making a ton of money and they can be on a yacht somewhere and not be stuck doing events and press conferences and actually running anything from an official standpoint. I don't think they want it. They're happier the way that they are. Gavin Newsom, though, he wants it. I mean, he is on that nomination like white on rice. He wants it so bad. He's so thirsty for it. So I do, and I have said for years, I think he's going to be the nominee. But, you know, there's been also a lot of discussion, just to stick on the Democrat side of this for another minute here, about them trying to do that roll call vote to get Joe as the nominee, you know, as early as before even August, not only before the convention, but before that. And folks are saying it's the Biden team wanting that to make him the nominee as fast as possible. And I look at it and I think, no, knowing kind of, and I don't have a full grasp on the mechanics of all this, but I think they actually want to make him the nominee sooner rather than later, because I think the sooner they make him the nominee, the sooner that they can actually give it to somebody else. I don't think they want to give it to somebody else in August. I think they would rather start that movement now. So I see it from a different perspective. I see it as being manipulated, but I don't see it being manipulated because they want Joe. I think it's the other way around.
Well, I think that, and you made this point, and it made me kind of hesitate. If Joe Biden is renominated, if he somehow wins the election, Kamala Harris gets installed the next day, weeks later. And that's the scariest thought of all, is that a woman who never really ran for anything is going to get picked for VP because of what she looks like, not because of her competence or the way that she does anything. And then she becomes the president, because we know that Biden will not make it another 4 years. So you kind of made me think there for a minute, Tommy. I was like, you know what? There are players in the Democrat Party that are helping Joe just be dragged across the finish line. They're dragging the corpse across. So I think that is definitely a scenario. I see what they're trying to do with trying to get the roll call, and they're trying to, change the DNC process, because when Joe Biden was speaking the other day, he said that the delegates essentially could be unbound in the DNC, because there is a conscience clause in the Democrat Party where the delegates can break from their commitment to the nominee if it's in bad conscience or something like that. We got to look into the DNC party rules. But I saw that being talked about online, and I saw delegates going on CNN actually talking about doing that. So I think it's going to be totally unforeseen and totally unlike anything we've ever seen when this Democrat convention happens. And we're at the RNC here. I've been here since last week. I was on the Rules Committee, and we said this: listen, while the Democrats are in disarray, we are showing the country and the world that we are 100% unified. And this was actually before they tried to take President Trump's life. So imagine, now what we're displaying. We've already started doing it. And tonight and tomorrow, it's only just begun. Going to be a lot of great people taking the stage and a lot of great shows of force and unity together for President Trump and this party.
A lot of divine intervention. I want to get to that. But the last thing I do want to ask you, because I think it's just, I want to get your take on it. And it can be just a simple answer. If you had to make the choice, and I'm not saying that you would, I'm saying if you had to make the choice, and it was like, all right, Mike, which one would you rather have as your president? And you have to make a choice because there's no other option. Would you rather Gavin Newsom be your president or Kamala Harris?
I would, if I had to, I would probably rather Gavin Newsom than Kamala Harris.
And I agree with you. And I'm going to tell you, why. I have a real disdain for Gavin Newsom, a real disdain. Lived in California. I think that he is the political equivalent of just the worst thing that could happen to our country.
He's a reptile.
But I think Kamala Harris would be worse. I think they would have the same radical agenda. But I think Kamala Harris would just be an extension of Joe Biden, because I don't think she would run anything. I think Joe hasn't been running anything. Neither of them have. So what we're seeing now, which is complete and awful disarray and destruction of our country, would continue, which would be horrible. So I hate that idea. But Kamala also on a world stage would embarrass me deeply.
Yes.
And as an American, I don't want to be embarrassed like that. Now, I'm not saying Gavin Newsom wouldn't embarrass me. I'm just saying he would look and sound better. He would at least be able to put together a thought. He would be able to read off a teleprompter in a way that
Yes.
wouldn't embarrass me on face value to the world as much as having Kamala Harris in that position, laughing and making jokes about being unburdened by what has been in the passage of time. So I want to move on now, though, to a much better topic, and that's the RNC, because I know you said you've been there, you've been in the action, you've been watching the speeches. So your top line thoughts on JD Vance. Are you happy with the selection, and was that your first choice?
Yes. So in the final pool of candidates that were being talked about, JD Vance was one of them. You had Marco Rubio. You had people talking about Tim Scott. You had Ben Carson. You had Doug Burgum. These are all contenders. I thought JD Vance was the candidate that solidified how Trump came to power. That was winning the hearts and minds of the Rust Belt. JD Vance embodies that, working class, come from nothing, make something out of yourself in the rural Rust Belt. So, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, that's what put President Trump in the White House in 2016. So I think him taking a nod and giving JD Vance the vice presidency and putting him on the ticket with him, I think that shores that back up. I think that says to everybody that President Trump remembers, the people that got him in the White House, people that are going to elect him again, the most crucial constituency, the forgotten men and women that really make the MAGA base. So I like the pick. JD Vance, obviously he said some, anti-Trump things in the past, but I think anybody who's serious right now and practical at what's going on. I mean, the guy's record in the Senate has been very good. The guy's been great, a great, arbiter. He's been great on television. He's been able to, really tell the story very well. So I think he looks good. I think he sounds good. He's young. I think people look at Biden. They see somebody who's old. I think even some people look at Trump and they say he's a little bit old. Kamala, like you said, I don't even know what you classify Kamala as, but they see JD Vance as like a young, competent, up and coming leader. So I love the pick from President Trump. It was my number one pick. And in the convention, everyone's very excited about it.
Yeah, a couple things to that. It wasn't my first choice, but I will say I have since, like a lot of other Americans, have gone on to Netflix and started watching Hillbilly Elegy. And honestly, it's given me a new perspective on him. Being told in that cinematic way, I think is important. And for a lot of people that need that background on him because they're not as familiar with him, especially those that don't do what we do for a living, those that are just honestly working class Americans who care about politics, but not as much as we do. I think watching that or reading the book is really important to get the understanding, and it is inspirational. And you mentioned the forgotten American. I mean, he speaks to that. And so I think it's powerful. I would encourage everybody to go watch or to read so that you learn more about him, give you a little more context on the man. And I think it'll give you a lot of respect for him. It certainly did me. But I will say, I think that a lot of those forgotten Americans were probably going to vote for Trump. So I don't know if he maybe changes that calculus at all. But you know what? Nothing wrong with it. I love a forgotten American. I'm from South Dakota. It speaks to me as well. So I like it. I think it'll be a powerful choice. And I'm excited to hear him speak tonight. I want to ask you as well about the RNC itself and what you expect to hear from Donald Trump. We've heard that he kind of rewrote his speech after the events of last weekend. And what do you think the differences are going to be given that?
Well, I'll say one thing first, Tommy. I think we're all happy that President Trump didn't pick Crispi Unafraid. I know last time we talked about that.
I mean, I saw that guy bring that dog out. You were there. The guy that brought, what's his name?
Yes, Baby Dog.
Baby Dog. When I saw Baby Dog, I was like, get Crispi Unafraid out of the building. Must save Baby Dog at all costs. Okay.
Yes,
but yes,
absolutely.
I was happy it wasn't Crispi Unafraid. Happy it wasn't Nikki Haley. So yes, agreed.
And I thought, your guy, Ron DeSantis, I thought he did a good job last night, actually. I thought his speech was really well. So anyway, back to Trump's speech. I think Trump, he said he ripped up the speech. I'll tell you something I noticed about President Trump. I've been covering him for 9 years. I went to my first Trump rally in 2015. I covered, many rallies, dozens of rallies with Right Side Broadcasting for a time when I worked with them. And I've seen the guy in many settings. I've met him. I've shook his hand. I've talked to him backstage multiple times, multiple rallies. I have never seen any footage of President Trump out there of him being emotional, flushed, okay, where it looks like, on the verge of tears. Never seen that with him, ever. He's tough. He's strong. He's resilient. He puts on an about face for the American people. When he came into that arena on the first night of the convention and he took in the crowd and he took in the reaction, I think he felt the weight of the moment. And I think it was just so historically unique. I think that it was just so, just so much power, okay, of what was happening. So much, just the weight of the moment, the historic nature of the moment, that he looked like he was going to cry. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay, because I think nobody doubts the toughness and the resilience and the mental fortitude and physical fortitude of Donald J. Trump. So I say this, when he gives his speech on the last night of the convention tomorrow night, I think he can be emotional. I think he can tell a story about his near-death experience. I think the world is going to be watching it. And I think he already, has earned the respect of millions of people who maybe were undecided, who were on the fence. Like, that guy stood up and he put his fist to the audience to let them know that he was okay, because he said he looked out in the crowd and he saw everybody standing there. And he said, it's amazing how my people, even in this chaotic moment, are just standing there waiting. They're not going crazy. They're not rushing. It's not a stampede. So I think that President Trump can show emotion. I think he should show emotion, something he's never done, but I think he can and he should. And I think a message of unity, a message of bringing the country together, a message of, clearly we need to come together as Americans. Clearly we're going to unite America. Clearly political violence is not the answer. And clearly people trying to assassinate their political opponents, is not going to be something that's tolerated. So I think he's going to give a great speech on substance. And I think he could tap into, what makes him tick, what drives him to the finish line. I think he can kind of talk about that on kind of a personal level, and we'll see a unique side of Trump that we've never seen in a speech before. I think it's going to be very, very powerful. I can't wait to see it.
I do too. And I think that him, as to your point, showing emotion and being really human, I think will make a lot of people be like, wow, this is like a real dude. Like, I know that he's this billionaire. I know he's Teflon Don. I know that he survived an assassination attempt and got back up on the stage looking for his shoes. Like, I know that the man seems invincible, and he is in a lot of ways. But I think him showing real human emotion and just saying, like, all these people that hate me, I'm not this monster. I'm a human being. I show emotion. I care about my family. I care about my country. I'm doing this for you guys. Like, I could go live a great life and not be, in the bullseye, as Joe Biden would say. And I don't want to do that because I want to save this country. So I think you're right. Very powerful. I also want to talk about the assassination attempt itself, because every day we get more information, and every day the information that we're getting is even more unsettling and infuriating. And it should be for all Americans. And I'm sure you've heard this, but for those that are watching that haven't heard Cheadle's statement, the director of the Secret Service, about the sloped roof. I mean, if there was ever a dumb statement to make, it's this one. Let's take a listen.
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again. That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, the decision was made to secure the building from inside.
Do you plan to stay on? Absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
The sloped roof. I've seen people climb up on more of a slope to put up Christmas lights. So what do you make of that excuse? And do you think that she's going to have to resign because of this?
So, Tommy, let me get this straight. Some 105-pound basement-dwelling geek was able to climb up on the sloped roof, but members of our United States Secret Service were told that they couldn't do it because of the slope and it wouldn't be safe. I mean, it's nonsensical. And I'm really disappointed. I'm really disappointed that even in a moment like this, where the president was almost killed, Kim Cheadle still will not acknowledge the obvious, is that the DEI policies were on full display. It was 100% shameful. It could have literally gotten someone killed in the quest to be, hiring more women. I mean, look at the way that the reaction happened with the Secret Service. There was a lot of weakness on display right there. It wasn't the A-team. As a matter of fact, I noticed when President Trump came into the arena in Milwaukee, his detail looked a little bit different, Tommy. It looked like a totally different group of people. Go look at that footage. So she's a disgrace, and she's put politics into the areas in which we shouldn't inject politics. Listen, I'm as Republican and as MAGA as they come, Tommy. You know that. I dislike Biden as much as anybody. You know that. But I wish for Joe Biden to have the best protection possible, because I don't want to see a leader in our country, anybody, even if I disagree with them, I don't want to see them killed. And I understand how sensitive it is to protect the person. So I think that as a right-wing person, it's crazy how the left wing goes, well, you know, we're going to have 30% women and, you know, we're not going to have them go on the roof because it might not be safe because it's sloped. It's like, I just go, what will it take for you to be broken from the spell, or this mental illness is what it really is, of your pushing of the radical left woke agenda? It's unbelievable. She needs to resign. She needs to be kicked out. I'm calling on congressional Republicans to make a big issue of this and take a stand.
Well, we got information today, obviously, that they're going to subpoena her. She was supposed to testify, and then there was word that maybe Mayorkas was going to step in the way of that. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. But the point has been made that everybody that has failed on an epic level, whether it's those in charge of Afghanistan, those in charge of the invasion at our southern border, this assassination attempt, I mean, you name it, none of those people have been fired. None of those people have resigned or stepped down. So I don't know why we'd expect her to step down. I mean, that would be the right thing to do, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I think she's going to stick to it, and I think that the left is going to stick with her. I don't think that she would have her job as safe as it is if this had happened to a Democrat. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm wondering, too, after this week wraps with the RNC, we've got Trump as our official nominee. We move forward. We're going to be heading into the DNC and whatever's going to happen with that, and whatever the rest of the summer is going to bring. It's going to be crazy. I'm wondering if you think that some of the policy issues that were taking center stage before the debate, before the assassination attempt, namely our southern border and the illegal aliens murdering Americans, especially young women, do you think we're going to get back into that conversation? Because I'm really worried that people aren't as focused on that as maybe they should be.
Well, you make a great point. And a reporter asked me this on the convention floor yesterday. They said, do you think, you know, Trump gets this bump now from the assassination attempt? Do you think that fizzles out, or do you think that remains? And listen, a lot of moments, you know, in politics are cyclical, right? Everything, you know, they say in politics, a month is a day and worlds change in a day, or whatever they say. But when it comes to this moment, this assassination attempt, and President Trump, you know, raising the fist, I think that moment is going to be just as iconic now as it will be on November 5th. So I think people are going to continue to talk about that. But I will implore President Trump to say, listen, you make it about the mission. God saved President Trump because he wasn't done with President Trump putting him to work. I think that should be the message. I think it should be America is the last really true free country left on this planet. We are the shining city on the hill. We're the hope of the rest of the world. And God spared him, I think Trump should say this, so he can fix the country. And then he gets into the policy problems. He talks about the border. He talks about the way that we're about to have simultaneous foreign wars. He talks about Bidenflation and the economy and the illegals getting the debit card program and all that other stuff. Talks about the young girls who are getting raped and killed on the southern border. It's disgusting. I think he says, God spared me because he's not done with me. I understand that. I'm a warrior at this point for God, and I'm going to take this out and I'm going to save the country because that's what I'm called to do. And the assassination attempt kind of just embodies and encapsulates that. So I think he can shift it, Tommy, to a policy discussion, because obviously, people are feeling that right now. We're talking about the RNC. They're going to feel it. I think Trump will make it an issue, especially in the next debate, whoever he is debating.
That'll be interesting. I also can't wait to see the JD Vance, Kamala Harris debate.
Yes.
Boy, that should be exciting. I wonder how long it's going to take her to prepare for that one. She has no cognitive excuse, so I can't wait. It's going to be exciting. But thank you. Best of luck to you with the rest of the RNC. Stay safe. I know that there are some liberal wackos that are patrolling the area, green hair and all, so be careful out there. God bless you, and I'll talk to you soon. Hopefully, we'll have just even better news for the rest of the summer about the progress that Donald Trump is making on winning over hearts and minds.
Always a pleasure, Tommy. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right, folks, in keeping with the theme of the RNC, voices on the left and the right are attacking Amber Rose for speaking at the RNC convention and endorsing Trump, and I think it's BS, and I happen to have some final thoughts. So here's something that doesn't happen often. Personalities on the left and the right have their panties in a twist over Amber Rose speaking at the RNC convention. And in my opinion, the criticism from both of those sides is a bunch of unhelpful BS. Here is just a snippet of her speech in front of the RNC.
The truth is that the media has lied to us about Donald Trump. I know this because for a long time I believed those lies. My entire family is racially diverse. And I believed the left-wing propaganda that Donald Trump was a racist. My father said, "No, he's not, Amber. What are you talking about?" And when I insisted, he said, "Prove it." So to prove my father wrong, I did my research and looked into all things Donald Trump. People have to do their research.
It was a damn good speech. I encourage you to watch all of it. By anyone's standards, she did a great job. So what's the issue that has these triggered folks needing a tissue? Well, let's start with the obvious, the left. That's easy. We all know by now that when a pop culture figure who also happens to be black steps out of the Democrat box, they will be crucified by the loving and tolerant voices on the left.
So it's ironic that they were able to recruit this young woman who, she's a racially ambiguous. I don't want to say she's black because she has said she's not. So I don't want to say this woman who is of whatever race that she has claimed. She said she's not black. But they've brought somebody whose whole career is based in black culture. She used to be on a show on BET. That's the reason most people know who she is. She dated one of the most prominent African-American rappers in the business in the history of hip-hop. So her whole culture came from black culture, even though she says she's not a black person herself. And the fact that she is now the person they're using to try to recruit young people of color and to say that this is the person who is the endorser of Donald Trump who you should trust, when she won't even claim the culture that brought her to the table. I'm dubious that this will work. I don't know anyone who takes their political cues from Amber Rose, but just in case you do, you might want to duplicate doing your own research because she might not have done it thoroughly.
Once again, Democrat talking head says if you're black and you're not a Democrat, you're not black. Well, Amber Rose fired back with this tweet saying she identifies as biracial and calling out Joyless Ann Reed for her race baiting, and well done. But it's not just the left that takes issues with Amber Rose speaking at the convention and feels the need to police the culture like a little warden. Many voices on the right also felt the need to pipe up and blast the RNC for even having her, given she doesn't fit the mold and has a rather raunchy past. Well, here's the dealio. I don't care if she founded the Slut Walk, and I don't care if she has an active OnlyFans. That's her business. She didn't get up on the stage in skimpy attire. She didn't promote her OnlyFans. She didn't do or say anything that was inappropriate or raunchy or beneath the RNC at all. An uncomfortable newsflash to the pro-clutchers out there. The vote of the founder of the Slut Walk with an OnlyFans counts just as much as the vote of the most devout evangelical church-going Christian. She's not less of a Republican or less of an American or less of a voter because she doesn't look and sound like what some think a good conservative is supposed to look and sound like. And I don't think I have to remind my friends in the GOP that our former president and our current candidate isn't exactly Mother Teresa. Who cares? Big tent, remember? Do some of you even want to win elections? Amber Rose has just as much of a right to speak at the RNC as anyone else, and unlike some of the other speakers, she might actually bring in some votes the right didn't already have. So you go, girl. But hey, those are just my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in again tomorrow live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you'll never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday and I hope you'll join me.